Sis, some of the relationships that eventually become unhealthy marriages did not start with some massive red flag. Nobody was standing there on date number 2, shouting at you, controlling everything, showing you every terrible characteristic that they had. Sometimes it was subtle. It was the joke that he made about you in front of his family or friends, where everybody laughed at you, but you went home thinking, that actually hurt me, and that was actually really disrespectful. It was the fact that he was always late, always apologizing, but somehow never changing. It was the fact that you could technically speak to him about things, but before you went and spoke to him, you had to first rehearse it in your head roughly about 10 times, just to make sure that whatever you say it without upsetting him. And this is why I want us to talk about toxic relationships differently, because you are in your dating season. You are not yet married. And the dating season is not only there for you to ask, do I love this guy? It is also there for you to observe, right? Remember, the Bible tells us to watch and pray. So you need to observe, what am I potentially agreeing to live with should I marry this man? Welcome to the Relationship Classroom. This is one of the shows here on The Real Prolific Woman where we actually study relationships. We talk about dating patterns. We talk about boundaries. We talk about healing, discernment, and preparing intelligently for healthy relationships that will lead to healthy marriages. And today, ladies, we're talking about the 10 subtle signs that you may be in a toxic relationship and you don't even realize it. But before we get into the science, I need to make something very clear to us, ladies. A toxic behavior does not automatically mean somebody is completely toxic and he's a completely toxic human being. And the presence of an unhealthy behavior does not automatically mean, okay, I'm gonna pack my bags and this relationship is over. People have things they need to unlearn. They do. People come into relationships with history. People come into relationships with poor communication patterns, with wounds, habits, and things that they have never been challenged on before and sometimes never had to work on before. The question then becomes, what happens when the behavior is identified? Is there responsibility? Is there willingness to change? Does the blaming stop? Is there a genuine effort from him? Does the behavior actually begin to change over time? Because there is a major difference, women of God, a very big one, between I did something unhealthy. You brought it to my attention. I took responsibility and I'm working on it. And I keep hurting you, apologizing beautifully for it, making you feel hopeful again and again, and then going back, repeating exactly the same behavior. This is why I want you to remember these 3 words throughout this whole video: consistency, intensity, and damage. One bad day is not necessarily a toxic relationship. One disagreement is not a toxic relationship. But what happens repeatedly, how severe it is, and what it is doing to you is what's important. Now, ladies, let's talk about these signs. Sign number 1 that you might be in a toxic relationship is that you're walking on eggshells. This one is incredibly important, particularly to Christian women. Because sometimes we have been taught good things. We've been taught honor, respect, humility, and submission. And somewhere along the way, we can easily just distort those things. You start saying, I'm just being respectful. But you are not being respectful. You are actually afraid of him. Because being respectful and being afraid, woman of God, they are not the same thing. If before you raise something, you have to calculate this man's mood. If you're constantly asking yourself, is today a good day to mention this thing that's bugging me so much to him? If you are changing your words because you are terrified of the kind of reaction that you might get from this man when you confront things. If you are, becoming smaller so that that relationship can remain peaceful, that is something that you need to pay attention to. Woman of God, hear me. Submission is not fear. Respect is not tiptoeing around someone. Peace is not the absence of having a difficult conversation because one person is too scared to speak up. Sign number 2, you are constantly drained. And I don't mean that, odd occasional moment where you're drained, you've had a busy day, Sometimes you look at your life and you think, my gosh, this relationship is consuming an extraordinary amount of my time. Every other evening, it's either every evening or every second evening, there's another 3-hour argument. You were supposed to study. You were supposed to use that time to work on your business. You wanted to pray. You wanted to prepare something for work. But no, you're back on the phone analyzing the same relationship problem again and again. Sis, a relationship should not require your entire life to keep it alive. Pay attention when the relationship consistently interferes with your productivity, when it consistently interferes with your peace and your ability to function. Sign number 3, you no longer enjoy being around each other. You still love him, but you don't really look forward to seeing him anymore. Every small thing turns to irritation. Every conversation somehow becomes a long, heated argument. You find yourself relieved when your plans with him are cancelled. And sometimes we keep saying, but I love him. Okay. But what has the relationship actually become? Woman of God, love is important, but love alone does not tell you whether a relationship is functioning in a healthy manner. Sign number 4, his support is present, but it is not sufficient. Ladies, this one is subtle because sometimes he technically shows up for you. So if somebody asks you, does he support you? You'll say, yeah, yes, he does. But you know he came because you complained that he never comes. He congratulated you because you reminded him. He does enough that he can say, but I was there. But there's no genuine interest at all in the things that matter to you. And this is why observation is so important, woman of God, during the dating season. Don't only listen to what somebody says about being supportive. Watch. When something matters deeply to you, what happens? What does he do? Does this person make room for it? Does he celebrate you without you having to remind him? Does he inconvenience himself sometimes just to show up for you? Can he support something that benefits you even when he personally gains nothing from it? Because marriage is going to require two people who can genuinely show up for each other, especially when it matters. Sign number 5. The disrespect comes disguised as humor. This one is so personal to me because I remember being in a situation where somebody would make jokes about me around his family members. And everybody is laughing, right? Having a good giggle. But I'm sitting there thinking to myself, that's actually not funny though. And that's really, really disrespectful. Some of the things weren't even true that were said or they were being joked about. But because it was packaged as a joke, as humor, now if I go out and complain, it looked totally insensitive. Ladies, pay attention to that. Not every toxic communication pattern comes with shouting and swearing. Sometimes it is sarcasm. It is contempt. Sometimes it is repeatedly embarrassing you in front of people. Sometimes it is constantly taking little shots at you, then saying, relax, I'm only joking. No. A joke doesn't suddenly become harmless because the person who hurt you laughed. And another question I want you to ask yourself, ladies, this one is quite important. How does he speak about other people? You need to listen to that. Because some women make the same mistake of saying, he's rude to everybody else, but, he's lovely to me, he respects me, so that's fine. No, woman of God, that's not fine. That's a sign. Now let's look at a case study in the Bible. Woman of God, I want you to go and read 1 Samuel 25. This is a story of Nabal and Abigail. There's a lot to learn from there. Now, the Bible doesn't use the modern phrase toxic relationship, right? So no, I'm not trying to force a modern diagnosis onto scripture. But what we can examine in the Word of God is that there were harmful, destructive, and unhealthy patterns and relationship. So let's look at them. Nabal was a wealthy man. He was very successful. Ladies, this is important for me to note because sometimes we see that beautiful suit. We see the education, the money, the position, the Christian language, and we assume character. Nabal teaches us that somebody can be successful and still be very difficult to live with. And then you get Abigail. The Bible presents her as a beautiful and an intelligent woman. So sis, I want you to stop beating yourself up by saying, how could somebody like me ever end up in an unhealthy relationship like this if you are in one? Wise women can miss things too. Successful women can also miss things. Spiritually matured women can also sometimes miss things. But here's what I really want you to see. Nabal's behavior, how he was, created problems that Abigail had to solve, and continuously. Other people were so afraid to reason with him, they would just go directly to her. And she had to move quickly. She had to go and she had to clean up the consequences of his decisions, consequences of decisions that she didn't even make. Single woman, listen to me. Do not marry a man whose chaos will become your full-time occupation. Please don't. Because that wisdom that God put inside you could be used for building things. That wisdom that God put inside of Abigail could be used for leading, for creating, for raising children, for serving God. Woman of God, that wisdom inside you could build businesses. It can influence community. But instead, it's not. Look at Abigail. Abigail's wisdom was turned to her running around repairing damage created by somebody else's foolishness. And when she finally comes home after preventing disaster, Nabal is sitting all enjoying his life, apparently unaware of the danger surrounding his household. This is a picture I don't want you to ignore, woman of God. Sometimes you are exhausted, and you are exhausted because you are carrying the consequences that another person continues creating in that relationship. Now let's get back to the signs. Signs number 6. You cannot safely raise concerns, so resentment is building up. This can happen in 2 directions, okay? So maybe, number 1, every time you try to speak before, you are shut down. Now, what you've done is you've stopped talking. Sounds familiar. You say, it's fine, whatever. But it's not. You're storing grievances. You're keeping score. You're slowly becoming bitter. Or perhaps the other person actually opens up and has a conversation. But because of your own previous experiences, you've become afraid to be vulnerable to your partner. That means we also have to examine ourselves, ladies, because this video, okay, is not 10 terrible things men do to us. I don't want you to lose that. No, it's not. The question is, what unhealthy patterns are operating inside this relationship? And what am I contributing to them as well? Ladies, a quick one before we continue, and please don't go anywhere because the next signs are some of the most important ones. Okay? So if you're listening to this and thinking to yourself, I'm hearing this woman and I need to actually sit down and look at my relationship objectively, I've got good news for you. I've created the full pattern mirror worksheet specifically for that. It helps you to slow down and to look at the full picture of your current or past relationship before you respond to him, before you return if you've left, and reopen that door. Women of God, you can download it for free. It's up on the preparedwife.org under the digital store. And once you've downloaded it, make sure that you join the waiting list for the complete Prepared Wife Toolkit. Very excited about it. Very excited to be launching it soon. You can also join the Prepared Wife WhatsApp community through the website. And if you want more of me outside YouTube, I'm sure you do, I'm also available on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Facebook. You can simply search The Real Prolific Woman, okay? And you will find me. You can also search The Prepared Wife, and there you will find me on Instagram and Facebook. I've also got The Real Prolific Devotional available on Amazon. And finally, women of God, if you're organizing a women's conference, a church event, leadership event, or women's development program, and you're looking for a keynote speaker who speaks to women about faith, about relationship, about career, about healing, about purpose, and becoming the woman that God has called you to be, you should definitely reach out to me, and you should reach out to me right now. Okay, back to class. Sign number 7. The apology is constant, but the change isn't. Ladies, he's late again. You addressed it. He says, baby, I'm sorry. And he genuinely looks sorry. And then it happens again. You address it again. And another beautiful apology. Baby, I'm sorry. And nothing changes again. Here's something I want you to begin asking. What effort followed after the apology? If I'm chronically late and I genuinely understand that this hurts you, perhaps I start leaving earlier, right? Perhaps I set reminders. Perhaps I communicate before I'm late. Whatever the issue is, there should eventually be evidence that I am trying to change it. Woman of God, An apology can restore hope. Change restores trust. Do not confuse those two things. Sign number 8. Your boundaries are treated like an attack. This is especially important for Christian women, especially while dating. Maybe you prayed, right? And then you decide that I want to change this physical boundary in this relationship. I want us to stop having sex. And suddenly you're treated with abandonment, with guilt, or you know what, if you actually really loved me, if you really, really loved me, you wouldn't ask me to do this. Woman of God, pay attention. A person does not have to agree with every boundary you establish. That's fine. Everybody has the option to choose. But trying to pressure, frighten, or manipulate you into abandoning a boundary is something very, very different. And sometimes you can hear somebody's values before personally becoming a victim of those values. I want you to do something. Listen to how he talks about other people's marriages, the problems that they have. Listen to how he explains infidelity. Very important. Listen to what he believes a woman deserves if she doesn't give a man what he wants. I've once heard a guy say to me, if you don't treat me right, I believe a man can cheat. Do not constantly accuse somebody's worldview and then act shocked when one day that worldview arrives at your very own front door. Don't do that. Sign number 9. Control is being called leadership. This is another one I particularly want Christian women to hear me. Please open your ears. Woman of God, maybe he's more educated than you. Maybe he's more spiritually mature than you. Maybe he earns more money. Maybe he's naturally more dominant. And slowly, every preference becomes his preference. Everything has to happen according to his standard. Your opinions are tolerated rather than being valued. And every time it happens, you tell yourself, no, I'm just allowing him to lead. I'm just allowing the man to lead. Woman of God, leadership does not erase another person's personhood. A relationship does not require you to become intellectually absent. I always say this, the brain is part of the blessing. You are allowed to have a preference. You are allowed to disagree with him. You are allowed to think, woman of God, you've got a brain. You're allowed to ask questions. What's going on here? And you should be able to do those things without being demeaned, and you should be able to do those things without feeling fearful. Sign number 10. Fear and intimidation are entering the relationship. This is where I need you to become very serious, woman of God. Statements designed to make you believe nobody else wants you. Those are things you need to look at. Using your age, your history, or your children to make you believe you have no other option than to settle for this relationship. Explosive behavior designed to frighten you, trying to prevent you from leaving, right? That threat, that subtle threat, or trying to prevent you from asking questions. Pressure and threats intended to keep you in a relationship are not good. Those are not little personality differences, woman of God. And threats of self-harm used to stop a partner from leaving. I'm going to commit suicide if you leave. Woman of God, they are not romantic proof of love. They are serious and require qualified support, and you should not be made responsible for managing another person's safety alone. Woman of God, when fear, coercion, intimidation enters the relationship, stop reducing the conversation. Safety matters. Get out and get help. Ladies, let's take another look at another case study. Judges 16 is another relationship, and this time the unhealthy behavior is coming from the woman. I love this example because, women of God, we must also be able to ask ourselves, am I bringing toxic behavior into this relationship? Delilah repeatedly pressures Samson, and eventually the argument now becomes, how can you say you love me if you won't even give me what I want? Did you hear that? That's exactly what she said to Samson. If you loved me, you would. The sentence can sound very romantic, ladies, but sometimes it is manipulation dressed in emotional language. And Delilah here has another issue. Her desire for money. Her desire for money contributes to her betrayal. That matters because toxic traits are not only anger and shouting. Greed, woman of God, can become a toxic trait. Entitlement can become toxic. Manipulation can become toxic. Emotional pressure to get the things done the way that you want it to be done can also become toxic. And one of the most revealing things in that story is that when her own actions create the problem, she still turns the pressure back to Samson. So don't watch this entire video sitting, woman of God, collecting evidence against your boyfriend. No. Ask yourself genuinely, what am I doing in the current relationship that I'm in? Do I use silence to punish this man? Do I use tears, and ladies, we know this, to control the outcomes of, this relationship? Do I constantly bring up old mistakes? Do I make love conditional? Do I keep score? Do I make every problem somehow become about me? The relationship classroom has to be a mirror, not just binoculars. So can a toxic relationship change? The short answer is yes, it can. Some can, woman of God. But you cannot repair a relationship alone. There are 4 things that I would look out for in order for me to make that decision. Number 1, responsibility. Can both people say, I did that. It was wrong of me to do it, and I need to work on it. And then number 2, willingness to invest. Is there actual effort? Not just speeches and promises, but effort, woman of God. And then number 3, movement from blaming to understanding. Are we trying to win, or are we trying to understand what is happening between us? And then number 4, openness to help. Are both people willing to get wise counsel or even qualified support outside when necessary? And then, most importantly, you need to give it time. You don't need to see perfection by tomorrow, but you should eventually see some movement, woman of God. Because if there's an apology, after an apology, and after an apology, but the same behavior continues unchanged, the apology is no longer the evidence you should be assessing at this stage. The pattern is, okay? And that's what I want you to remember. And that's what I want to leave you with in this episode. You are dating, woman of God. This is your opportunity to observe. Remember, you're not yet married. But I want to caution you. Do not marry potential and then spend your marriage begging the pattern to become the person you imagined. Look at what is actually there. Look at what is actually happening. Look at the consistency. Look at the intensity. Look at the damage. Look at the response when you raise issues. Look at whether genuine change follows after that promise or after that apology. because your dating season is not only about finding somebody that you can marry, woman of God. It is also about becoming wise enough to recognize what you should not carry into marriage. Woman of God, this has been the relationship classroom right here on The Real Prolific Woman. If this taught you something, I want you to do me a favor. Send it to another woman who needs this classroom. Okay? And most importantly, remember to like, subscribe, and comments. I love comments. Comments lets me know what people are thinking, if I'm on the right track, and if I'm helping you, right? I will see you, woman of God, in the next episode. And remember to check out my videos.